you?
Like my shirt.
No. All right. Anyway, let me just try and remember what song I chose. All right. I'm ready to go.
I'm ready to.
Are you live?
Yes.
Okay. It says off air on my end, but
Says live on my end.
oh, it says live. Now it says live. Okay.
I think there's a delay.
True. All right. Let's do it. Coming in 3, 2, 1. Welcome to another episode of the Sports Pulse. I'm Brian Brennan.
And I'm Ethan Winter.
And right now you're listening to Public Enemy, which is still in effect after 25 years of awesome hip hop. Their song Harder Than You Think is the first song to kick off our radio show. One of the best pump up songs, in my opinion. One of the best rap groups ever, in my opinion. I'm sure Sean agrees, but Sean, as I'm sure you've noticed, is not here today. He's still
2
sick.
weeks in a row.
2 weeks in a row, he is putting the scrub in Scrub Nation right now. Not only with his 2-7 fantasy football, but 2 weeks in a row missing the Sports Pulse. But this time he says he's sick, so I believe him. Get well soon, Sean.
Yeah, I was sick last week and a little bit, but yeah, Sean. Hope you get better soon.
It is flu.
Or maybe you just didn't want to have to hear me talk about the Patriots this week.
No,
the Patriots beat the Redskins.
This isn't the episode where you're going to talk about the Patriots from beginning to end, is it?
No.
You at least wait until Sean's here for that.
Yeah, I'll wait till he's here for that. But I won't talk from beginning to end about Patriots. It's just I'll talk about it when it's relevant. When we're talking about football.
But we'll get to football in a minute. Obviously, today is Friday, November 13th. Friday the 13th. Yeah.
Friday the 13th.
Ominous day, but awesome day in the sports world as college basketball kicks off tonight. Really, it's going to be played all weekend. I think the first big game tonight is 7 o'clock. Gonzaga against Pitt, being played in Okinawa, Japan, of all places. Which I don't know what the thinking behind that is. Gonzaga's ranked number 9 in the country. Pitt unranked, but always a national contender. That is the first real big game of the night. It's at the Armed Forces Classic in Okinawa, Japan. I've actually been there, so pretty cool to say. We got a couple of teams that are looking pretty good this year, Ethan. UNC's ranked number 1 in the country. Maryland's ranked 3rd. Kentucky's 2nd. It's shaping up to be, hopefully, a pretty solid college basketball season.
Yeah, hopefully it will. The first real big game, like game between two teams that are ranked, isn't until Tuesday, which is kind of a bummer.
Oh, really? Which one?
I'm looking it up right now.
Well, it doesn't mean that there's still some good games tonight, but I'm only looking forward to 2 in particular.
Yeah, because, you have Iowa State, Colorado. Iowa State's ranked 7. Gonzaga, who's number 9, versus Pitt. Those are really the only 2 good games.
Yeah.
Tonight. Of course, you have the High Point Texas Tech game.
Of course, everybody's going to be tuning into that one.
Yeah, on the Fox Sports Southwest alternate channel or Fox Sports College Pacific or Fox College Sports Pacific.
I mean, that's the one I'm excited for. But
yeah, I'm excited for that one also. Charleston Southern is starting with Wichita State tonight at 10.
Oh, very good.
At 8, excuse me. Wichita State's ranked number 10.
Right.
And then tomorrow, you got a bunch of 3 boring games. Duke versus Bryant.
Ew.
Yeah.
Duke. our defending national champion, unfortunately.
Yes.
Two from me, but
Elon plays with Michigan on Monday.
Oh, cool! I'm sure Michigan will wipe the floor with them. That's cool.
Yeah, definitely. And then Tuesday we have Kentucky and Duke. That's the big game in the State Farm Champions Classic.
Now we're talking. That's gonna be a good kickoff to the season. Duke, of course, coming off the national championship. Kentucky coming off an undefeated regular season. That's going to be an exciting one. It's always interesting to see Coach Calipari and Coach K go up against each other. One, in my opinion, is the most overrated coach of all time. The other,
Calipari.
Yeah, the other is arguably the greatest coach of all time. So it's always fun when they go up against each other. Kentucky, I'm sure, feels like they should have Duke's national championship from last year, so that'll be a good one to go up against. I'm sure that's at a neutral site as well. So big.
It's yeah. Let me look. State Farm's Champions Classic in Chicago at the United Center.
I was gonna say that sounds like where it would be.
Yeah.
Because usually there's a huge high-profile matchup played at the United Center every single year at the beginning of the season. Really, the beginning of college basketball season in general. Like for example, I'm a big UConn fan. They're playing Maine tonight. Like it's usually before conference play starts. Teams like UConn and Kentucky and Duke, we like to kind of get some soft games out of the way.
Right.
And it's cool to see Duke and Kentucky throwing themselves right into the fire with that game on Tuesday. I'll be interested to see who wins that one. Obviously, there's a lot of turnover from both of these rosters, and they're really every year now that the NBA has the one and done rule. So it's always interesting to see. But do you have any predictions on who you think's going to win the national championship? Do you want to throw anything out there before we start the season?
Well, you mentioned UConn liking to play, being your favorite team aside from High Point being your alma mater. UMass,
High Point fan.
UMass, who's my other team besides from High Point, starts Saturday against Howard. I'll be working at the radio station, the board for that one. That game's at noon. That's another softy type games that you were talking about. UMass should win that one. And let's see who BC plays. I mean, BC sucks because they lost Olivia Hanlon to the NBA draft last year.
They're going to be too good this year.
No, they're going to be terrible. They weren't even good last year, but they started with St. Francis of Brooklyn, so they should win that game tomorrow. But in terms of national title predictions, I'll start with a Big South Conference prediction. I'm going to say High Point's finally going to get the hump and actually win the conference tournament this year. In John Brown's final year, John Brown, the best dunker in the nation right now, according to Jay Billis and CBS Sports. They all think John Brown is the best college dunker. But in terms of national title, I'm gonna go with Maryland. I think Maryland has what it takes this year. They're ranked number 3rd coming into the season. At one point in the preseason, they were ranked number 1 in some polls. So I think they're off to a good start, and I think they'll be cutting down the nets come March.
I think it's honestly. I know this is just preseason predictions, and by the way, I completely agree with everything you said about John Brown and High Point. They're 100% going to win the Big South this year, and if they don't this year, they're absolutely never going to win the Big South. So there's a lot of pressure to win the Big South this year. But getting it out of Myrtle Beach will be nice because I think honestly the fact that it was there the last 3 years might have messed with some of the High Point players' heads. Like, they can't win in that building. So I think
Yeah.
out of Myrtle Beach
But
friendly confines of Blues Creek, North Carolina.
But in regards to that, High Point has beaten Coastal in that building before.
Yeah,
it's
but
just in the tournament.
What I'm saying is the tournament, that building, 3 straight brutal losses in a row. I mean, that place is a house of horrors. I mean, I remember being there when we lost to Winthrop our senior year of college, right there as it all happened. And it was just devastating for everyone, including us as fans. I mean, that was just devastating. But going back to general national championship predictions, it would be cool to see Maryland win another national championship. This is probably the best team they've had since that team that won the national championship. I couldn't tell you.
Gary Williams.
Yeah, Gary Williams was the coach. Couldn't tell you all the people who were on.
Dixon. Wasn't Anthony Dixon on that team?
Yeah, and Steve Blake was on that team as well. So it was a good Maryland team that won the national championship. This is probably their best team since then. I always have a soft spot for Maryland. But I think UNC is going to be really tough to beat this year, too. They're coming into the year ranked number 1.
Although, wasn't
Marcus Page.
Yeah, Marcus Page, isn't he hurt?
He's hurt, but he's only going to miss, they believe, a couple of weeks. And so that's just non-conference games that they're going to win. So
anyway, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, they would have won it without Marcus Page. So UNC, I think, is in a good spot as well. I wouldn't be surprised. I'm not going to really go one way or the other on this, but I wouldn't be surprised if the national championship stays down here in the Tar Heel State and just moves a couple miles up the road to Chapel Hill. I think that might be what happens this year.
All right.
So we've covered college basketball for the year. Go UConn, go High Point. Moving on to what was another interesting week of NFL football, Week 9 in the season. A lot of very good games this week. Not the game that your team was involved in. And Sean's
that was awful. That was the worst football I've seen, or one of the worst football I've seen. At least this season. I mean, the Patriots played terrible, yet they still won by 17 points. I mean, that just shows you how bad the Redskins are.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's the Redskins for you.
So obviously, I mean, once the Patriots were up 14-0 in the first quarter, just like, all right, let's just get this game over with.
Moving on. But obviously, the Patriots stay undefeated. The Bengals stay undefeated as well, beating the Browns 31-10, and the Carolina Panthers stay undefeated, defeating the Green Bay Packers 37-29 in what was probably the best game all weekend. I know you didn't see it because you don't watch other football games, but that was a hell of a game. Carolina's for real at 8-0.
I don't think I even got it. I didn't get it because I had the Patriots game. That's on Fox.
Well, it was a hell of a game to watch. For most of it, it looked like the Panthers were dominating. They were up at one point, I think, 20 points, but Green Bay rallied back. Of course, Aaron Rodgers, being the machine that he is, threw for 4 touchdowns and almost led them right back. But the Panthers hold on, get a huge victory. They're 8-0. I'm sure you're feeling the same thing up near where you are right now with the Pats being 8-0, but the Panthers are 8-0. Everything's awesome around here. Everybody's happy. It's pretty cool to be around, and I'm sure the same thing in Cincinnati. I think this is the latest we've ever had 3 8-0 teams. Yeah, I think this is the latest we've ever had 3 undefeated teams, so it's pretty cool to see.
And I think part of that has to do with there's such a huge talent discrepancy between the really good teams and the bad teams, or mediocre to bad teams.
Right.
And it goes to show you that parity in the NFL isn't as good as it once was. I mean, the Patriots have been defining that for the last 15 years. And that's a big reason why a lot of opposing teams and fans hate the Patriots, because they keep on finding ways to win. They keep on winning in a league that's designed for parity.
But the thing is, they also went a long time without actually winning the Super Bowl. So, I mean, then
no, but
Super Bowl.
That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about for the last 15 years, whether they won the Super Bowl or not, they were always in the mix, and they were always a Super Bowl favorite. And you're not supposed to have that in the NFL, where it's designed for parity. That's
right.
my point.
Right.
But in this year, with in general, the product of football not being that great in the NFL. I mean, there are teams that play great football, and there are the occasional excellent games. The Carolina Green Bay one won last week.
There were a few good games last week as well.
Yeah, I'm just saying for example. Right. I mean, there are weeks where the football is excellent, but
week in particular,
I've seen a trend that, I mean, the quality of football isn't as consistent as it has been in the past in terms of level of play.
I mean, yeah.
I mean, there's some really bad coaching going on out there. There's some very undisciplined play going on out there, and there's a lot of sloppiness going on out there. I mean, the Patriots fell victim to it last week in terms of sloppy play. So, in general, I feel like the general football product in the NFL isn't as good as it has been in the past.
But in general,
and I think that has to do with because of the discrepancy in the really good teams and the really bad teams.
But in general, one of the great things about football has always been the any given Sunday factor, in which anybody can beat anybody. And we saw a lot of that last week as well. And it does kind of go to show you that there is kind of, I don't want to call it a level playing field, but you're right in the sense that the level of football has been so down that really almost anything can happen week by week. I mean, last week, people weren't giving the 49ers any credit or any chance at all of beating the Falcons, and they went out and did it. Same thing with the Colts against the Broncos. I mean, nobody thought that, these teams had any chance going into these games, and they still pulled out these wins. You can look at it as, football's down, the quality of football is down, and you're right, it is. But at the same time, it kind of makes things a little more interesting in a way.
Yeah.
There's more. I think everybody's kind of a little closer as it is.
Right, and the Falcons are you can say at this point the Falcons are the most overrated team right now. I mean, they've lost 3 of their last 4 games.
Yeah, started.
That's bad. They started 5-0.
Right, they started up there with the Panthers. And
right.
Now the Panthers have kind of separated themselves from the pack in the NFC South, with Atlanta losing to a team quarterbacked by Blaine Gabbert of all people. I mean,
right.
Yeah, I know people like to make the excuse they had to travel across the country, but even then, come on.
But traveling east to west is a lot easier than traveling west to east.
I know. I'm not making.
I'm not talking about you specifically. You mentioned that people were saying, "Oh, well, they had to travel cross country," but I've traveled a lot. I've been fortunate to travel a lot, and traveling from east to west is a lot easier than traveling west to east. West to east, that's where the jet lag really gets you.
True.
When you travel west to east. But east to west, it's fine. All you do is you stay up a little bit later.
Yeah.
So it's
no excuse to the Falcons.
There's no excuse for the Falcons to lose that game. And now you have the New Orleans Saints, who I believe are now right behind the Falcons' tail at 5-4, right?
Yeah, in a game that they should have won last week against the Titans. That game was on down here for a little bit. And, at the time, it looked like the Panthers were just going to roll to victory. So I put that game on for a while, and the Saints completely blew it against the Titans. I mean, that's a game you have to win.
Right.
If you want to have, like we've said, everybody's kind of in the mix, but, I mean, you got to beat the teams you're better than.
Right.
That was bad. And the Saints are actually 4-5, so there's still 2 games.
Okay, yeah.
Still 2 games behind the Falcons, and
they should be 5-4 because they should have beaten the Titans last week.
Right, exactly. And they're 5 games behind the Panthers, so you can pretty much kiss the division away for the New Orleans Saints and for probably the Atlanta Falcons as well, unless they beat the Panthers twice, which I don't think they would. So, yeah. Why don't we move on to Week 10? We've talked about the quality being down. Last night, we've already had one game played in what was kind of an ugly game. It was the Buffalo Bills against the New York Jets. Rex Ryan's return to New York. I picked the Jets. I was wrong. Ethan, you probably didn't pick the Jets.
No, I did pick the Jets, and I was wrong.
You did pick the Jets. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, it was a game where I was like flipping back and forth. Like, I could totally see the Bills winning, but at the same time, the Jets are playing at home, and they've looked really good this year. And also, Rex Ryan was already talking about the next game against the Patriots before he even played the Jets.
You know what Rex does.
Yeah.
You know what he does.
He's crazy. He's crazy.
I love Rex Ryan. I've always been a big Rex Ryan fan, but
right.
he's out there. And this game, of course, the focus was on 2 things in this one. It was at the pregame hype, at least, was Rex Ryan returning to MetLife Stadium for the first time as head coach of the Bills. And the second one, and I think this is hilarious. This is one of the things that Rex does that I just think is hilarious. He likes to, fuck with people a little bit. He made IK Enemkpale one of the team captains for the Buffalo Bills last night. And if you'll remember correctly, and whenever we do edit this episode, we should probably throw in the audio clips of people saying that Geno Smith getting punched in the jaw was the best thing that ever happened to the Jets. But
I think it's still true.
Still 100% accurate, because even Ryan Fitzpatrick on his worst day is better than Geno Smith on his best.
Right, and it's funny because they were actually on sports radio up here. They were talking about that too, and they were talking about the buffoonery that is Rex Ryan, and they were saying, like, if you're the Jets, like, this shouldn't affect you because I can't and Enemkpale probably did your team a favor,
right,
by punching out Geno Smith. The Jets would not be 5-4 right now had Geno Smith been the starting quarterback from day one.
Not gotten punched in the face.
Yeah,
exactly. I don't know why. I mean, I don't think it affected the Jets in any way, but I just thought it was funny. Like, I think this is funny that Rex Ryan actually does this. Like
it's Rex. It's Rex, and he's done this before. He sent out his entire offensive line as captains. The guys that hated Doug Marrone for just leaving at the end of last season when they played the Jaguars in London.
I mean, I think that's funny. Like,
I think it's funny too. As a media person or someone that would like to be in media, you have to love Rex Ryan because he just gives you gold each and every week.
Right. I mean, it was this week he put on a Clemson helmet as well in his pregame or his press conference. I mean, he's just being ridiculous. He's a showman. The NFL needs, people like Rex Ryan, I think, at least. And good for him. He gets a win in his return to New York. He was obviously pumped up. But, that game meant a lot to him. That meant a lot to the Bills as well, to win
Right.
that game in New York. So I understand why he's pumped up. I don't know who Sean picked. Did Sean pick the?
He picked the Jets.
Okay, so
I should have picked the Bills. I can't believe I didn't pick the Bills. Just to be different, I should have picked the Bills.
I don't know why we all picked the Jets to win.
I mean, I saw this. I saw this coming because the Jets, ever since they played the Patriots, they haven't really been the same team. They've lost now 4 of their last 5 games.
Right.
They lost 3 of the last 4 games since they played the Patriots, including that game. And they're on the downturn. They're banged up at quarterback. Like everything was pointing towards the Bills winning, and I should have picked the Bills.
Well, either way, we live and we learn. We all start off 0-1 this week.
Yeah.
Move on to our next game. The undefeated 8-0 Carolina Panthers going up to Nashville to take on the 2-6 coming off of a big victory Tennessee Titans. I am going with Carolina in this one to get to 9-0. I think they've proven to everybody in the world right now that other than to just people down here, that they're for real after beating Green Bay. So Carolina gets to 9-0, another big game for Cam Newton, and they beat up on the Titans.
Yeah, I have Carolina also. I don't think the Panthers will go undefeated, but they're not going to lose their first game to the Tennessee Titans. They're for real. They've shown that they're for real. Latest that the Panthers have been undefeated this season. I'm going with Carolina, or in a season in team history. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Obviously, very exciting to be around it. I was just in Charlotte this weekend. This week, everybody's caught up with Panther fever. It's pretty awesome. Moving on to the team that they beat last week, the Green Bay Packers return to the friendly confines of Lambeau Field to take on the 1-7 Detroit Lions. Not much to say here. I'm going with Green Bay.
Yeah, the Packers just seem to be a different team at home. They play a lot better at home, and I think they'll get back on the winning track after losing 2 straight.
It looks like this is just a game that the Packers needed, I think, to get back on track. They've owned the Lions at Lambeau Field. They haven't won at Lambeau in over 20 years. So I'm going with Green Bay, like I said. 7-2 for the Packers. Moving on to Tampa Bay against Dallas in what I would have said would have been an easy win for Dallas at the start of the season.
Right.
But I think this is the game where Dallas will end its losing streak either way. I'm going with the Cowboys in this one. Tony Romo or no Tony Romo?
See, the Buccaneers, they've been an interesting team. They've played well. They've gotten some surprising wins. They're at home, but the Cowboys have played like shit. No, without Tony Romo, and so until Tony Romo comes back, I'm going to continue to pick against the Cowboys. I'm going with the Bucs.
All right. So first game we disagree on this week. I mean, I'm always okay if the Cowboys lose either way, but I think this will be the week they kind of get off the schneid like a little bit. I don't think.
They need to win this week if they want any shot of making the playoffs, though.
And they need Tony Romo to come back soon.
Yeah.
Of course, everything's just a circus right now in Dallas with Greg Hardy and everything. Obviously, you want to talk about that later, so I won't talk too much about that, but it's a mess right now in Dallas. Moving on, we've got the St. Louis Rams sitting at 4-4 going up against the Chicago Bears, who got to 3-5 with a win on Monday Night Football against the San Diego Chargers. This game's in St. Louis. St. Louis lost in overtime last week to the Vikings. I'm going with the Rams.
Yeah, I'm going with the Rams also. The Rams, they're a decent team. They're a good team. I think they're an up-and-coming team. And the Bears, they're kind of inconsistent. They're like the NFC East. You don't know what you're going to get from them week to week. But with the Rams at home, I'm going with St. Louis.
So St. Louis is both of our picks this week. Moving on to the game.
Sean, by the way, picked the Bears.
And Sean cannot defend himself on this next game because it's the Redskins against the New Orleans Saints. Saints are 4-5. Redskins are 3-5. Game is in Landover, Maryland. But still, New Orleans should have won last week, but they've been putting up points like crazy. So I am going with the Saints to get a road win.
Yeah, I'm going with the Saints also. The Saints have been playing really well, even though they did lose last week to the Titans, a game that they should have won. And the Redskins, you just don't know what you're going to get from them week to week. But this is a game that I could see them maybe winning just because of the unpredictability of the Saints themselves. But I'm going with New Orleans.
Yeah, the Saints are really, you never know what's going to happen. Like, we saw Drew Brees throw 7 touchdowns against the G-Men and then kind of crap the bed at the end against Tennessee. So you really never know what you're going to get with either of these teams. Moving on, we've got the Miami Dolphins against the Philadelphia Eagles. I think this is another game where you never really know what you're going to get from either of these teams. I'm going to go with the Eagles in this one to get to 5-4. Miami's just too inconsistent, and Philadelphia's at home. They've looked good the last couple of weeks. They beat the Cowboys last week in Jerry World in overtime. I'm going with the Eagles.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I'm going with the Eagles. Also, the Dolphins are just the Dan Campbell joyride is over. Once again, it was squashed by the Patriots, and I think the Dolphins are going to lose their 3rd straight game.
And then, like you said, Dolphins probably are going to be in the market for a new head coach next year. Moving on, I don't really have I was hoping I'd have a transition for the next game, but I don't. Moving on, we've got the Browns and the Steelers, 2 teams that have always hated each other. Pittsburgh, I don't think anybody's sure who's going to be starting for the Steelers yet. It could be Ben Roethlisberger. It could be Landry Jones, but either way, the game's in Pittsburgh, so I'm going with the Steelers. Johnny Manziel is supposed to start for the Browns, but I don't think that's going to make too much of a difference, so Pittsburgh.
So how serious is Michael Vick's injury?
Serious enough that it's going to keep him out and force the Steelers to go to a potential 3rd-string situation.
Yeah, I mean that's interesting. And I mean the Steelers, if they were healthy, fully healthy, and they had all their offensive weapons, Roethlisberger, Le'Veon Bell, Antonio Brown, and Martavis Bryant, all healthy and all playing together at the same time, they would probably be one of the best teams in the AFC this year. But I mean, nothing has gone the Steelers' way this year, and it's just bad break after bad break after bad break for for Pittsburgh. It's really tough, and this is kind of a hard game to pick because, I mean, it's an NFC North divisional game. No matter who's playing, it's always going to be relatively competitive, and especially with the Steelers being as banged up as they are, you could make a case that the Browns have a chance to upset the Steelers this week, but it's in Pittsburgh, so I'm going to go with the Steelers.
And Antonio Brown did put up 220 receiving yards last week in a winning effort against the Raiders, so he's been living up to expectations
Right.
as well.
I mean,
So
Martavis Bryant, I mean, he's had a pretty good season since he's come back, but the last 2 weeks he's kind of dropped off since the first
right.
2 weeks that he got back. And I know that full well and clear since I've started Martavis Bryant every week since he's come back. In the last 2 weeks, it's burned me because I've sat Michael Crabtree, who's gone off the last 2 weeks.
Tough break.
Yeah. And he was on the bench.
Yeah, that's the tough break of fantasy football. Moving on, we've got the Jacksonville Jaguars against the Baltimore Ravens. The last of the 1 o'clock games. This is a stinker. They're both 2-6. I'm going with the Ravens just because it's in Baltimore.
Yeah, I'm going with the Ravens just because it's in Baltimore, and the Ravens are better than the Jaguars. Let's face it.
Even with the same record isn't always the indicator
Right.
in matchups like this. But Jacksonville hasn't looked too bad this year, even for 2-6. But they're still not as good as the Ravens. So Baltimore wins this one. Moving on, first of the 4 o'clock games we've got up here, we have the Minnesota Vikings visiting Oakland to take on the Raiders. Two very surprising good teams that are right in the thick of it for a playoff hunt. I'm going to go with the Vikings because I think they're for real at 6-2 to get to 7-2. I think they're coming in hard for that wild card spot, or potentially even the NFC North Division if the Packers do slip at any point. I think the Vikings are for real. Peterson looks like a man on a mission. Bridgewater's developed. Stephon Diggs, if it weren't for Todd Gurley, would probably be the rookie of the year right now. But I'm going to go with the Vikings.
Yeah, I'm going with the Vikings also. I actually am not as surprised as you are to see the Vikings playing so well. I picked the Vikings to go, I believe, 10-6 this year.
Right.
And the Vikings are tied with Green Bay for the first place in the NFC North. And the Raiders have played well too. Derek Carr is having a very nice season in Oakland, but the Vikings are on a roll.
Yeah, so we've both got Minnesota in this one.
Sean has the Raiders.
Sean does have the Raiders. Okay, good for Sean for making it different. I wouldn't be surprised if Oakland wins this one, to be honest, but just because they've been good this season, and they are right in the thick of it in the AFC playoff race at 4-4, but I think they're going to fall to 4-5 this week. Moving on, this is the one that Ethan really cares about, and the one that my family really cares about too. We have the New England Patriots against the New York Giants. A rematch of what I would call the two best Super Bowls of all time, but Ethan would disagree.
No, I would say last year's Super Bowl was probably the greatest of all time.
Well, I disagree.
Not just because the Patriots won, but just how the game ended.
I still disagree no matter what. But I mean, hard to argue with the helmet catch, but that's just me.
Oh, it's hard to argue on such a dramatic ending.
Right.
That was last year's Super Bowl.
Happened in Super Bowl 42. Anyway.
No, but it wasn't as dramatic. Like this, I mean, last year's Super Bowl, you had the Seahawks on the 2-yard line, going a touchdown wins them the game most likely, and you have one of the best running backs, and you pass it, and this no-name player comes out of nowhere and intercepts the pass at the goal line to win the Super Bowl for the Patriots. I mean, if you remove the Patriots name from it and you put any other team in that situation and you had that ending, I guarantee you would have said that last year's Super Bowl was the greatest Super Bowl of all time.
Hey, Ethan, 18-1. Anyway, let's get on to the game.
Fuck you.
This week, the Patriots come into it 8-0. Giants come into it 5-4. I think this is going to be an actually pretty good game because the Giants, we've mentioned it, have beaten the Patriots the last 3 times they've played, including the 2 Super Bowls. However, there's been a lot of change for both teams since the last time they played in Super Bowl 46. Giants haven't even made the playoffs since then.
Right.
So even though I think they could, and I think they will this year, no matter whether they win or lose this game. But I am going to go with the Patriots. I think that, like you've been saying, Tom Brady's on a mission this year, and this is one of his targets. Really, I mean, we said it. The Giants have beaten the Patriots in the Super Bowl twice.
And I mean, if it wasn't for the Giants, and if it wasn't for fluke plays, if you had a healthy Rob Gronkowski in Super Bowl 46, the Tom Brady would be 6 for 6 in Super Bowls. I mean, that's really what it comes down to. And had those plays gone the Patriots' way, had Rob Gronkowski been healthy in Super Bowl fully healthy in Super Bowl 46, there would be no doubt that Tom Brady is the greatest quarterback of all time because he would have been 6 for 6 in Super Bowls.
I still think no matter what, Tom Brady's probably the greatest quarterback.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people think that anyway, but had the ball bounce the Patriots away in those 2 Super Bowls against the Giants, it would be undisputed, is what I'm saying. But anyway, that's a discussion for another time. Let's get down to this this game. And like you said, a lot has changed. You don't have Matthias Kiwanuka anymore. You don't have Michael Strahan. JPP has 1.5 hands. Yeah. Yeah. He has 8 fingers.
I'm hearing 8 is questionable, by the way.
It might be 7.5.
I've heard 8 is. It's quite. Nobody really knows. I would be surprised if honestly his teammates had no idea.
I mean,
or something in the Giants locker room.
Yeah. But I mean, a lot has changed. The Giants, their pass rush isn't what it used to be, and the pass rush is what pretty much won. It definitely won the first Super Bowl for them, in the Super Bowl that should not be named.
Right. Continue.
But and the Giants secondary is atrocious. It's worse than the Patriots secondary, who's been quietly having a decent season. I wouldn't say good. I mean, they have been beaten on plays, but they're playing a little bit above expectations, despite losing Terrell Brown, who was playing really well for the Patriots before he got hurt. And now when you look at the Patriots' defensive side of the ball, their pass rush is the one that's elite. The Patriots have the better pass rush now, and that's what has helped the defense in the secondary, especially, is the pass rush has been so good. Chandler Jones is leading the NFL in sacks with 9.5 on the season. You got that incredible linebacking core that's so deep. Although Jamie Collins is out sick again this week, that's a big loss. But this game has always been an interesting game. A lot of people think that this is the game that the Patriots could lose. But I honestly, I think this game is going to be a shootout. I think both Tom Brady and Eli Manning are going to have pretty good games this week. I think it will be close at the beginning, I think it'll be close for 3 quarters, but then in the fourth quarter, I think the Patriots will start to separate from the Giants and end up winning. I have 41-21 as a final score for this one, but I don't think the final score is going to be as indicative as how close the game actually will be. I think it's going to be a good game, and I think it's going to be a competitive game for most of the game.
I think it's going to be a real good game because obviously, I mean, the Patriots have this game marked on their calendar. I mean, I'm sure Belichick and Brady do. Not everybody who's on the Patriots now has played the Giants before, vice versa. But I think that the Patriots will get the win. If it was the Super Bowl, I'd go with the Giants. But it's not. I'm going to go with the Patriots.
Yeah, I mean, Tom Coughlin is one of the few coaches that I think could say has Bill Belichick's number, and Tom Coughlin, he gets a lot of crap in New York for whatever reason, but I think Tom Coughlin is one of the best coaches in the NFL.
Tom Coughlin should be in the Hall of Fame when he retires.
I think he will be.
I think I mean, not only for his work as head coach of the Giants, which has been outstanding, but for his work as an assistant coach. And really, the Giants changed when Tom Coughlin changed. Before they won the Super Bowl, Tom Coughlin was kind of really Tom Coughlin's always been kind of intense, but he would fine players for showing up early to meetings, and people were like kind of freaked out by it.
Wait, he would fine players for showing up early?
Strahan said he used to get
or you mean late
for showing up. No. He got fined for showing up 5 minutes early instead of like 10 minutes early for a meeting or something, and Coughlin fined him.
Oh, I know what he's saying. Like Coughlin wanted him to be there earlier.
Yeah.
So to me, Coughlin, it's on time. It's 15 minutes early.
Right. That's what I'm saying.
I get it. Yeah.
But when Tom Coughlin kind of loosened up a bit, that's when things changed for the Giants. They won 2 Super Bowls, and I think Coughlin's a Hall of Fame coach. I don't think they're going to win this week, but I think the Giants are going to ultimately win the NFC East Division this year. Moving on from Eli Manning to Peyton Manning, who is 3 yards shy of breaking the all-time passing yardage record in the NFL. He'll get to do it at home against the Kansas City Chiefs. He only needs 3 yards, so unless he tears his ACL on the first play, he's probably going to do it. And I'm going to go with the Broncos to get to 8-1.
Although, so I've actually heard that Peyton Manning is questionable for this game because of a foot injury.
Really?
Yes.
Well,
I think he'll still end up playing, but I think he'll still get the single season or career all-time passing record for yards, but that foot is going to make things interesting in the game and to see how effective he is. I still think the Broncos are going to win. I think the Chiefs blew their chance back in week 2 to beat the Broncos.
When they also had their best player blow out his ACL. So
although that best player did hand the Broncos that win.
True. That is also true.
But I still think the Broncos are going to win.
Yeah, this should be a I don't think it'll be an easy win, but it'll be a win for the Denver Broncos. The Chiefs are pretty much out of it at this point. That's it for the 4 o'clock games. Moving on to the Sunday night showdown of the week, we have the NFC West leaders, and it's not the Seahawks. The Arizona Cardinals going up against the Seattle Seahawks in Seattle. This is going to be a good one. This is what Sunday Night Football is pretty much all about, primetime in Seattle. I'm going to go with the Seahawks to get a bounce back win. Although, like you said about Peyton Manning last week or last game, I've heard Marshawn Lynch is also questionable. So that could be a huge difference maker as well. And Arizona's been very good this season. Obviously, 6-2. Carson Palmer is in somewhat of a MVP discussion, definitely comeback player of the year discussion. But I'm going to go with Seattle because the game is in front of the 12th man up in Seattle.
Yeah, but the last year, if I'm not mistaken, the Arizona Cardinals beat the Seahawks in Seattle.
I don't think it was last year, but it was definitely.
It was in the last 2 seasons at the very least.
They've done it recently, that's for sure.
And so the Cardinals have been playing very well. The Seahawks offensively have been inconsistent, and the Cardinals have a very good defense. Legion of Boom is starting to come back together and get their shit together some, but I think the Cardinals are going to steal one out of Seattle.
I mean, this game could really go either way. If Arizona wins it, they're in complete control of the division, and I think they know that. So I wouldn't be surprised if they. I mean, they're going to come out ablazing in this one, and it's a big game for both teams. Seattle really can't afford to lose it, so I'm going to go with the Seahawks.
Sean picks the Cardinals, by the way.
All right. So we're making it interesting. It's me against the world here in this one. Going up to our last game of the week, Monday Night Football, we have the 8-0 undefeated Cincinnati Bengals against the Houston Texans coming in at 3-5. Game is in Cincinnati. I think the Bengals will get to 9-0.
Yeah, I kind of wish the Texans were better than they are. Because I mean, I want a good game, but also the Bengals still haven't really been tested a whole lot. They haven't played a primetime opponent in prime time, and that's always been their bugaboo the last few seasons, is that they can't play in prime time. And they have played in prime time this season, but it hasn't been against primetime opponents. And so, I mean, last week or 2 weeks ago, last week, they were playing the Browns on Thursday night on primetime, which, I mean, Thursday night games are a joke anyway.
I don't even know if that counts time.
Right.
It's just because it's the only NFL game on.
Right.
So you would consider that prime time.
And it's during the week.
Right.
And now they're playing the Texans at home on Monday Night Football, and that to me is not really a test either. So I'm going to go with the Bengals, but I really want to see the Bengals actually tested in a primetime game. I mean, they played the Seahawks, but that wasn't a primetime game. And I think if that game was in primetime, I think the Seahawks win that game.
I would say in Seattle, I'd probably go with the Seahawks as well.
Right, but I want to actually see the Bengals play a primetime opponent at a 4:25 or 8:30 Sunday or Monday night game, not against a scrub team like the Browns or the Bengals, or the Texans, excuse me.
So that'll wrap it up for. That'll wrap it up for our Week 10 preview. Should be an interesting week of NFL football, and on to the wild card this week, which I believe we have 2 this week.
Yes.
Keep it in the NFL to start off with a new thing that the NFL introduced last night. I don't really know I guess it's an idea that isn't really working. The color rush uniforms. If you haven't seen it, just think of Christmas ornaments, and you pretty much have what we had last night.
Right.
We have the Jets wearing all green.
Kelly Green.
They were wearing green jerseys that were like darker green than usual, I guess.
No. It wasn't darker green. It was Kelly green. It was a brighter green.
Right, brighter green sounds like.
It was Kelly green. To me, I think the Jets should have just worn their regular green on green alternates with the forest green.
Well,
that they normally wear.
That would have made more sense, but the NFL felt the need to
make a new uniform.
Create a whole
more money, more revenue.
And Rex Ryan looked straight up like Santa Claus had shaved last night. I mean, the dude was wearing a red sweater and a red hat. And I mean, fuck, he might as well have been Santa Claus. He just needed a beard. I mean, they were all like in blood red, the Buffalo Bills. And so if you were colorblind last night, and this is the real point the real story we're getting to here. Now, 8% of America is colorblind, or red-green colorblind, which creates a huge issue when everybody's wearing green and everyone's wearing red. And they're going at each other at 100% at 100 miles an hour, like right at each other. So for a good portion of America, or not a good portion, well, 8% of America, it was just like you couldn't tell which team was which. And I mean, I don't think this is going to happen with every game in the Color Rush series, but it's not a good sign when you've had one game of these ridiculous uniforms and you've already had people complaining about how ugly they are and people saying it's Christmas uniforms. And on top of that, there's a group of people that can't even tell which team is which. So, I mean, I don't think it's a good look for the NFL, to be honest.
A lot of things don't look good for the NFL right now, but as we'll get to later on in the program. But yes, I don't think the Bills. If it was a red top on white pants, I think it would have been fine. And if it was, but it was just too much red, too much green. The Bills looked like Heinz ketchup bottles, according to Deadspin. And it's a mess. And the Jaguars, who are playing on Thursday Night Football next week, their uniforms are even worse. They literally look like poop or urine.
Gold poop.
According to some folks, it looks gross. Now, I thought that, okay, they might look interesting, but they look horrible. I mean, that shade of gold looks horrible, and I hate monochrome uniforms. And the fact that it's just gold on gold on gold on gold, it just makes it awful. If it was gold top and white pants, I don't think it would look as bad, but it's too much colors.
You know those like living statues that you see in places like Times Square and like parks, where people are just like in all gold outfits and stuff? That's kind of what it looks like to me. Like they're just all wearing gold. It looks bad. This is just a bad idea the NFL came up with.
Although I think there are some teams that are going to look good, like the Tennessee Titans. They're going to be on. I think they're actually playing the Jaguars. Next week. Their powder blues look awesome. Right. And I mean, powder blue, anything looks awesome. You can't go wrong with powder blue. Yeah, and also, I think the Rams faux gold uniforms are going to look awesome too.
I mean, we've all seen a little bit of like a snippet of what the jerseys are going to look like. We saw it for about like a couple of seconds, but it was kind of, I guess last night was like the first real example we had. I didn't really see the issue. I'm not colorblind, so I have no idea what it looks like. I've seen video of what it looked like for people who are colorblind, but it's not going to be an issue every single game.
Right.
And like you said, the NFL has bigger issues to worry about than these jerseys.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a sort of a sports nerd, and I critique sports uniform or sports jerseys just because I'm a sports nerd and I like to do that stuff. And I mean, I don't think all the uniforms are going to look bad. Um, and like I said earlier, I didn't on its own. I don't think the Jets or Bills looked like totally awful. I think if it wasn't just monochrome, I think it would look better. Um, but and like I said, I think the Titans powder blues are going to look awesome, and the Rams gold are going to look awesome. So I don't think all of them are going to be awful. And it's just like I'm not going to spend that much. That's not where there are a lot of things to get outraged at the NFL about. The NFL color rush is not one of them.
Definitely, I would agree with you. I would agree with you there. We'll get to you. I know you like. I've been teasing this for a while, but
yes.
You've got a point to make about the NFL for sure coming up. But,
yes.
Moving on to something that may or may not put money in the NFL's pockets. I'm not quite sure, but I'm pretty sure
it definitely does right now.
Yes, it has been all season. And as of right now, I can play it, but my parents can't because they live in New York. We're talking about daily fantasy, FanDuel, and DraftKings. The New York State Attorney General has declared them both illegal gambling. And I mean, now it's banned in New York. Do you think, personally, Ethan, is this the end of daily fantasy gaming?
No, I think the main issue right now, and I talked about this with my mom last night. The main issue right now is trying to figure out how to regulate it, and I think it is something that they can regulate, and it will allow to thrive, and you can play it or continue to play it. But it's all about how you can regulate it, and that's the main issue with the states right now. And New York right now, they're saying it's illegal, but I don't think it's going to stay illegal. They're just making it illegal while they figure out how to regulate it, because the whole issue of this isn't because I mean it's because of gambling, but that's not why states are getting involved in it or are trying to make it illegal. They see how much money is being made by daily fantasy sports by these companies, DraftKings and FanDuel, and the states want to get a cut of the action. They want a piece of the pie, and it's going to help if they regulate it. I think it's going to create a lot of money for the states, which is good in terms of the states have money to do stuff now and actually help use it to help citizens and continue to build infrastructure and help the economy and stuff. But the way that it is right now, it's unregulated. The states aren't getting any part of the action. Some states that do actually have a version of daily fantasy sports that's regulated, that's run by the state. I think Montana is one of them, or Minnesota.
That wouldn't surprise me, to be honest.
So I don't think it's the death knell for daily fantasy sports. It's just I think it's a big blow to FanDuel and DraftKings as private companies, though.
I would say so, definitely. I mean, New York in general is a fairly significant state. It has a huge impact, and New York City in general, and that's where FanDuel and DraftKings. I know one of them is based in Boston, but
DraftKings is based in Boston,
right? But they have a satellite office in New York, and FanDuel is based in New York as well. So This is going to be a big blow for them, and there are a lot of people in New York who play FanDuel and DraftKings.
Right.
So it is going to be a big blow. I don't know if it's going to be the beginning of the end, but it's definitely not a good look for them. This is just one man's opinion, and the argument I've heard from people who do play FanDuel and DraftKings is he's got more important stuff to worry about. Why is he focusing on this? But
wait, who? Roger Goodell?
No, not
Or
Roger
the
Goodell.
states? The states.
The state. No, the state attorney general from New York. The argument against is no. This has nothing to do with Roger Goodell.
Right.
But
yeah.
The state argument. The people I've heard from that do play FanDuel and DraftKings, their argument is, why is the New York attorney general getting involved when he's probably got more important stuff to worry about? But honestly, FanDuel and DraftKings, to me, almost put themselves in this position by putting their name every single place and basically making it seem like you can just get a pile of money, like, by playing their game.
Yeah, no.
I think they raise a lot of eyebrows. And for people to say that this isn't a big deal, I mean, don't go on TV saying with FanDuel you can win $2 million a week, like just crazy commercials. Yeah. And they're all over the TV. Like, you can't go 5 minutes without seeing a FanDuel commercial. Well, and I think that it kind of brought this to the forefront.
Well, what brought this to the forefront was the insider trading. With the DraftKings employee playing at FanDuel, which was dumb. It was totally dumb on his part, and he probably should be fired because of it from DraftKings.
If he hasn't, then already.
Right? Yeah. But I mean, people do win like $2 million or $1,000 or whatever. $100 or $100, $500, whatever the prize is. People do win that much money, but the big money winners are the guys or people that are the hardcore gamblers that don't necessarily watch or know sports. They just know the number crunching of statistics, and they figure out those players to pick that no one else is picking. And that's how they win all that money. They use statistical calculations to figure out who they should pick up based off of who else everyone else is picking up. And they're the ones finding the hidden gems that are winning this a bunch of money. And the average NFL football fan who doesn't spend that much time and resources into doing the research, they're just doing it because they like football or whatever sport it is that they're playing daily fantasy on. And they watch it and they think they know a lot about the sport and they think they know who's good or not, but that's not how you win. You win by figuring out the numbers and the statisticals and the algorithms and all that number stuff that I don't really understand. I mean, it's like the same as counting cards, kind of.
In a way.
I
understand.
I mean, and so in DraftKings and FanDuel's defense of saying, hey, we're a game of skill. Yeah, in that sense, they're right. It does take skill involved. And that's their main argument against saying why they're not gambling. But, I mean my mom makes the comparison to picking the ponies at the track. I mean, it's the odds of who's picking, how many people are picking which horse. And the horse that a lot of people are picking, they're not going to win that much money on.
Right.
And it's the underdogs that no one really knows about, that no one's picking, is what wins you the money. That's how you win.
That's how you win the big money on FanDuel and DraftKings, pretty much.
Right.
I mean, I never really thought it was illegal. I always thought it was just kind of those annoying commercials, to be honest.
Yeah,
I don't play FanDuel.
Yeah.
So
I mean,
They never.
I think people should still be allowed to play. I'm pretty liberal in that thought, and that, hey, I mean, it's there. It's people. It's their own choice on whether or not they want to gamble or not. Like, no one is
Right.
making them gamble. It's their decision. They can do whatever they want. They can spend their money however they want. Um, but it's just, I think the states just want to regulate it so they can make money and get a piece of the pie.
Almost reminds me a little bit of marijuana and the way that that's
Yes,
a state regulated thing as well,
or
and
should be.
that it's becoming in some states state regulated,
Right.
and so they can get a piece of the pie. And it reminds me of that in some ways too.
And in that
Eventually, I think.
in that point, Brian, it reminds me of a kind of project that I did in poli sci class at High Point, where we had to balance a state budget. I think it was New Mexico or something, and one of
Right.
the options was legalize, regulate, and tax marijuana. I clicked that. That pretty much single-handedly balanced the state's budget just by
Boom.
legalizing it, regulating it, and taxing it.
Boom. We'll save that for another day.
Right.
Yeah, we'll save that for another day. But maybe DraftKings and FanDuel can be kind of like that in some way. But on to the walk-off. Ethan, you go ahead. You rant away about Roger Goodell in this week's edition of
What did Roger Goodell do wrong this time?
Yes.
And so Deadspin, or last week or earlier this week, photos of Greg Hardy's ex-girlfriend were released. I mean, it was horrific, and really, it pretty much matched the description in the police report. And like, I wasn't surprised to see those pictures. I wasn't surprised to see how bad they were, because that's what was described in the police report. What I was surprised about was how was Greg Hardy expunged? Like, those charges are expunged from his record. That's what blows my mind, is how is that even possible? But what this has to do with Roger Goodell in this edition of What Has Roger Goodell Done Wrong This Time? Deadspin has
great title, by the way.
Yeah.
I just love the title.
Deadspin has come out with an article, basically detailing, and it takes excerpts and also has a link to the entire transcript of the Greg Hardy reinstatement hearing, which included the woman that the NFL hired to help crack down on domestic violence cases and domestic abuse cases and domestic abusers. And so they asked Greg Hardy's side of the story. They took it at face value for the most part. They pretty much disregarded what the witness said, that was the defending, or was made a statement on the behalf of Greg Hardy's ex-girlfriend, Holder. And it was pretty much clear cut and dry for the NFL. All right, we'll take this under advisement. And then over the summer, his 10-game suspension was reduced down to 4. The same amount of games that Tom Brady was originally suspended by Roger Goodell was upheld by Roger Goodell, and ultimately shot down because of the ridiculousness by Judge Berman, who the NFL, by the way, chose to hear the Tom Brady case. But anyway, if the NFL used even half amount of time and resources and energy that they used in Deflategate on Greg Hardy would not be playing football right now. He would still be suspended. He might not even be reinstated in the league right now. And it's sickening. It is absolutely sickening for a league that claims that they care about domestic abuse to allow such an animal that is Greg Hardy that shows no such remorse, unlike Ray Rice. Ray Rice actually seems like he's a remorseful guy. He actually seems like he was humbled by that whole incident with his wife, Janae Rice. Ray Rice actually seems remorseful. Greg Hardy has no remorse whatsoever. It's a shame that he's still playing in that league. It's a shame that Roger Goodell has allowed him to play in this league. And it's absolutely embarrassing that they took Greg Hardy's side of the story, side of the events, at face value and didn't even really question it. It's absolutely embarrassing and appalling, and Roger Goodell needs to be fired. And you're talking about Tom Brady allegedly being involved in deflating footballs a fraction of a PSI as conduct detrimental to the league. That is an absolute joke. Greg Hardy is a conduct detrimental to the league. It's disgusting. It's despicable. Roger Goodell needs to go. I'm sick and tired of Roger Goodell. He's a fucking buffoon. He's a disgrace to humanity. A disgrace to humanity.
Personally, I think that the bigger story in the Greg Hardy situation, while yes, Roger Goodell should not have let him back into the league, personally, I think Jerry Jones deserves more of the blame for letting this continue because he signed Greg Hardy after the Panthers got rid of him. And with Ray Rice not having a job, and personally now we've seen evidence similar at least to what Ray Rice did. He shouldn't have been let back into the league, and Jerry Jones not only let him back into the league, but Jerry
Jones didn't let him back in the league. Roger Goodell did by reinstating him.
No. What I'm saying is Jerry Jones signed him though, and continue. And not only is Jerry Jones by signing Greg Hardy, the way he's acting about Greg Hardy is a disgrace in and of itself because Jerry Jones is calling Greg Hardy a leader. He's saying he's, good for everybody in the Cowboys. I mean, obviously the Cowboys have had a lot of injuries, but how much can Greg Hardy really be helping them at 2-6 right now and just looking worse and worse each week? Every time he fights with his teammates or this evidence,
his coaches,
and his his stupid thing on Twitter this week where he said he's innocent until proven guilty. Bruh, you were already proven innocent.
Yeah, he was already proven guilty. Yeah,
but I mean, if Jerry Jones were a real man, he would have released Greg Hardy by now. But Jerry Jones is a pussy and an old asshole who needs to get out of the NFL and get rid of Greg Hardy.
See, I mean, I agree with you on Jerry Jones, but I think Roger Goodell is a bigger detriment to the league than Jerry Jones is. Roger Goodell needs to go before Jerry Jones does. And now,
can they both go at the same time, please?
What? Yeah, I mean that would be nice.
I'm sick of Jerry Jones. Since Jerry Jones has come into the league, nothing good has happened. The Cowboys have won Super Bowls. It's just anytime the Cowboys win, it's just awful.
I mean, Jerry Jones. I mean, you actually kind of have to respect Jerry Jones a little bit by not backpedaling and actually sticking to his guns. But I mean, you can't respect him for signing him in the first place.
I don't respect Jerry Jones at all. I didn't. I especially don't now.
And the only reason why Ray Rice isn't in the league right now is because he can't play anymore. He's a washed up over the hill running back, and that's why he's not playing. And
I don't think
Greg Hardy can still get to the quarterback. That's the only difference between him and Ray Rice is that Greg Hardy can still play and is still an excellent player. And Ray Rice is past his prime and is done and is washed up. But I actually think Ray Rice. I actually have more respect for Ray Rice than I do Greg Hardy because at least Ray Rice has shown. I mean, it's all relative, Brian. Keep that in mind.
Right.
Because at least Ray Rice has shown some sort of remorse. Whether that's genuine or not, it's hard to tell. But it seems genuine from Ray Rice. Greg Hardy has no remorse whatsoever, and that's what's despicable about it. And I mean, there's a saying that in order to stop a problem from happening, you have to go to the root of the problem, and the root of the problem is Roger Goodell reinstating him into the league, and that. And the root of the problem is also in the justice system, and
for letting him walk.
For letting him walk. So we need to fix the justice system and preventing these types of things from happening. I mean, Greg Hardy 100% Greg Hardy paid that girl off to not show up. I mean, there's a 99.9% chance that happened.
Right.
And I mean, you could make a case that's it could be a obstruction of justice, intimidating a witness. I mean, you could make cases against that. And I think state of North Carolina, I may be wrong, but I heard somewhere that the prosecutor of the case
has to show up in court.
Well, but the prosecutor of the case wants to trying to file a charge of intimidating a witness by Greg Hardy. Is that correct, or am I wrong?
I'm not
I
sure.
I thought I heard that somewhere.
I hope that's the case. I want Greg Hardy out of the NFL.
Yeah, I mean, Greg Hardy should be in jail for 10 years.
Be in jail for as long as we can keep. We shouldn't have people like Greg Hardy in jail.
Right.
But
wait,
we
shouldn't have him in jail.
We should have people like Greg Hardy in jail.
Yeah.
Not out of jail.
Yeah.
But I'd like to give a shout out to the current quarterback of the Carolina Panthers, Cam Newton. We all know about what happened this week with him ripping down that Green Bay Packers banner at Bank of America Stadium. First off, I'm a little disappointed in the turnout we had for the question I asked about it on our Facebook page, whether that's just protecting the house or just not right. But first off, I think it's awesome that Cam Newton tore down the banner, but it's not what everyone should be talking about, what Cam Newton did this week. We've all seen the video of Julius Peppers taking the ball away from Cam Newton and after he scored the touchdown and just kind of throwing it away. But Cam Newton picked the ball up and he gave it to a kid in the stands, and that kid ended up being Colin Toller, who is a 6-year-old from Danville, Virginia, who had recently lost his father. And his father had promised to take him to a Panthers game, but he couldn't before he died. And so Cam Newton gave this kid the ball. Cam didn't know that it was, is the kid's backstory. But to me, I think the fact that Cam Newton, and he does this after every touchdown, the fact that he does it at all is something awesome. Cam Newton right now is probably my favorite player in the NFL because he does stuff like this. And I think that's what we should focus on, what Cam Newton did this week, instead of ripping down the banner. Because first off, the guy who brought that banner broke stadium policy, so he shouldn't have gotten reimbursed for the banner by the Panthers, which is what ended up happening. And second off, he and his friends are all a bunch of racists. I mean, I showed you the post, Ethan. I don't know if you saw it.
Well, I mean, I didn't really look into it that much.
Well, he is these guys who went to the game with the guy who brought the banner. One of them posted on Facebook saying when Cam Newton came up to them, he almost told him, I don't hold cash on me, implying that he thought Cam Newton was going to rob him, and called him hood and everything. And I think that, instead of focusing on Cam Newton ripping down the banner, we should have been focusing on what he did with this kid, giving him the ball. And that's really all I have to say about that. Cam Newton's probably my favorite player in the NFL right now because he does stuff like this. And yeah, I just thought the banner thing was just dramatically overhyped. Like, I couldn't believe that actually turned into a big deal.
Yeah, it was. I mean, the banner thing was kind of ridiculous.
Yeah.
I'm with you, Brian. In that, I mean, he's just trying to protect his house. I mean, if you're an opposing fan coming into an opposing stadium as a visiting fan, like there are certain things that you should expect or could expect that could happen.
Right.
And that is one of those things. And if I'm a fan of the Carolina Panthers, I'm loving this. Like, you don't come into our house bringing a banner saying North Carolina Cheesehead with a Green Bay Packers logo on it. I mean, I applauding for Cam Newton for doing this. If I would want my someone on my team to do that. I would want Gronk to. If someone came into Gillette Stadium and hung a banner of supporting the opposing team, I don't want Gronk or whoever, Julian Edelman, to rip it down and throw it away or something. I would want my players to do that. I mean, it's part of the game. It's part of defending the house. It's part of home field advantage. I see no problem in what Cam Newton did in regards to that banner, but I 100% agree with you, Brian, that we should be applauding the Cam Newton for giving that young fan, the football. No, regardless of the story, I mean, the kid's backstory makes it even better. But regardless, we should be celebrating that. And Cam Newton, as much as Greg Hardy represents all that's bad in the NFL, Cam Newton is one of those players that represents all that's good with professional athletes.
I mean, people thought that he was going to be, a bust when he came into the NFL, but Cam Newton.
I was one of them.
Yeah, I mean, I think I was too, to be honest. I thought Cam Newton wouldn't even be in the NFL right now. But here he is. He's got the Panthers at 8-0. It's fun to be around. It's awesome. I'm all aboard the bandwagon. Pat's all aboard the bandwagon. We're trying to go to another game. And hopefully we get to. But taking us out for this week of the Sports Pulse, we're going to make it funky. We've got Parliament, Flashlight, some funk from the 70s taking us out this week. Make it funky this weekend, everybody. Have a good one, and we'll see you next time on another episode of the Sports Pulse. Take it easy.
Fire Goodell.